American Civil War. The third deadliest weapon in the war was the Gatling gun, the world's first machine gun. Invented in 1861 by Richard Gatling using a hand crank and rotating barrels, early models could fire up to 400 rounds per minute, the equivalent firepower of 100 infantrymen, meaning you had to have at least 100 men to fight a machine gunner in open terrain. It was first used by Union forces in 1864 at the Siege of Petersburg, where it completely stunned Confederate troops. Though used in limited numbers, the Gatling gun made close combat nearly impossible and began modern wars where machine guns ruled over other small arms. Artillery were the second deadliest weapon. They came in two main forms: smoothbore and rifled cannons. The 12-pounder Napoleon was a smoothbore that fired solid shot and explosive shells, perfect for close combat. On the other hand, the Parrott rifle used rifling to fire accurately over long distances, even destroying forts, like in the Siege of Vicksburg. These cannons could fire up to 2,000 yards, and their shells exploded on impact or midair, showering shrapnel over soldiers. In many battles, like Gettysburg and Antietam, cannon fire was responsible for thousands of casualties. They accounted for approximately 12% of casualties in the war. If I told you this was the deadliest weapon in the American Civil War, you wouldn't believe it. It's called the mini-ball, a hollow-based conical bullet. When used with rifled muskets like the Springfield Model 1861, it allowed deadly long-range accuracy, up to 1,000 yards. The mini-ball was brutal. It shattered bones and caused gruesome wounds. They accounted for around 80% of battlefield deaths, partly because of their accuracy, partly due to outdated tactics like dense infantry lines. World War I. Chemical weapons were the third deadliest weapons in the war. They didn't just kill, they burned skin, choked lungs, and broke minds. It began in 1915 when German troops used chlorine gas. Soldiers saw a green-yellow cloud rolling toward them. They had no idea what it was. Then it hit. Breathing became torture, eyes burned, lungs gave out, and men suffocated while standing. After that, war changed. New gases came: phosgene, mustard gas, tear gas, each worse than the last. Phosgene alone killed over 85,000 soldiers. The second deadliest weapons were machine guns. They caused about 34% of French losses, and by the war's end, made up 30 to 35% of all military deaths. Machine guns didn't just kill, they changed tactics. No more mass charges. It became a war of trenches and survival. Most machine guns were water-cooled. With constant firing and water shortages, soldiers sometimes used urine to keep them from overheating. Weapons like the German Maxim MG08 fired 500 rounds per minute. It fired through infantry, creating zones no soldier wanted to cross. When most people think of World War I, they picture endless trenches and rows of soldiers being cut down by machine guns. But here's the truth. Artillery killed more soldiers than any other weapon, making it the deadliest weapon of World War I. In some battles, like Verdun or the Somme, soldiers never even saw their enemy, only felt the earth shake as shells exploded all around them. Artillery shells were responsible for approximately 60 to 75% of battlefield casualties. Over 700 million shells were fired during the war. Since you're fans of weapons or anything that goes boom, I've got something you're going to love, and it's today's sponsor, War Thunder, the most detailed and realistic vehicle combat game ever made. Just look at the gameplay. It feels like you're right in the middle of a real battlefield. And here's the best part. It's free. You can play on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or even mobile. In War Thunder, you take command of over 2,500 war machines. Tanks, planes, helicopters, and naval ships from 10 different nations. From the oldest war machines to modern fighter jets, War Thunder has it all. It has one of the most advanced damage systems in gaming. With vehicles modeled down to the engine, crew, fuel tanks, weapons, and armor, every shell and missile behaves like it would in real life. It's detailed, intense, and seriously cool. You can also upgrade your vehicles, deck them out with custom skins, and build your own arsenal. So don't wait. Download War Thunder free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. Use my links in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. This offer is available for a limited time only, so don't miss it. World War II. The third deadliest weapon in the war was machine guns and rifles. They inflicted 14 to 31% of total casualties, with a high kill-to-wound ratio. meaning they killed more people than they injured. Specifically, the MG-42 machine gun, nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw. It fired at 1,500 rounds per minute, cutting down waves of advancing soldiers. It had a terrifying sound. The U.S. Army had to train soldiers using films to handle the noise. One renowned German machine gunner, Heinrich Severloh, reportedly killed nearly 2,000 men in a single day at Omaha Beach. The second deadliest weapon was planes, but more specifically strategic bombers. The B-29 Super Fortress not only dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but also unleashed firebombing over Tokyo, killing nearly 100,000 people in one night. The atomic bombs themselves were apocalyptic, known as the deadliest single events of the war. Little Boy and Fat Man caused approximately 200,000 deaths within minutes. Artillery, including mortars, field guns, and heavy howitzers, was hands down the deadliest weapon of World War II, responsible for an astounding 65% of battlefield deaths in Europe and 47% in the Pacific. One of the most feared was the German Flak 88mm. It started as an anti-aircraft gun, but quickly proved lethal against tanks. Its massive 17-pound shell could tear through armor with deadly precision. The Soviets had their own powerhouse too, the ML-20 152mm howitzer. It rained steel across cities, especially during the Battle of Berlin. The 30 Years' War. Field artillery, especially cannons, ranked as the third deadliest weapon of the war. Used in sieges and large-scale battles, both heavy and light cannons could tear through fortifications and crush enemy formations. They had a slow rate of fire, but made up for it with sheer destructive power, mostly renowned in the Battle of Breitenfeld. At the second place, we find pikes, sabers, and swords. Close combat was still common, especially during charges and sieges, used alongside musketeers in mixed formations. Example 50% muskets and 50% pikes. Pikes were 10 to 18 feet long, deadly in close formations and defense. The deadliest weapon in the 30 Years' War was the matchlock musket. It fired a lead ball the size of your thumb, tearing through armor and bones. Musketeers formed the backbone of every major army, firing in synchronized volleys that shattered enemy lines before a single sword was drawn. Used by all sides, it was inaccurate by today's standards, but deadly at close range and in mass volleys. Notable mention: disease and starvation caused over 60% of total deaths, but not considered as weapons. Napoleonic Wars. At the third place of the deadliest weapon in the war, we have sabers, bayonets, and cavalry weapons. Although less lethal overall, they were largely used in brutal hand-to-hand combat. They accounted for 10 to 15% of all battlefield wounds. Sabers and cavalry charges were especially used in pursuit phases and through infantry columns or broken formations. Bayonets were used when firing stopped and the real fear began. They were the third deadliest, but the most personal. Ranked the second deadliest, artillery inflicted an estimated 10 to 20% of all battlefield casualties in the Napoleonic Wars. Artillery's battlefield effect was amplified by tactics like Napoleon's Grand Battery, which pulverized enemy lines before the infantry moved in. Napoleon even once said that God is on the side with the best artillery. And in the Napoleonic Wars, that wasn't just a quote, it was a deadly fact. In the Napoleonic Wars, one weapon dominated the battlefield. Not with precision, but with numbers. These were muskets like the Charleville, Brown Bess, and Potsdam. Soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, firing volleys that filled the air with lead. They barely hit anything beyond 50 yards, with an average hit rate of just 3%, but with tens of thousands firing at once? Even bad aim kills. Despite their flaws, they caused over 65% of all battlefield injuries. In battles like Austerlitz, Waterloo, and Borodino, musket volleys were the main killers. Iraq War. Small arms fire claimed nearly 1 in 5 U.S. combat deaths during the Iraq War. This includes bullets from ambushes, snipers, and even brutal close-quarter battles in cities like Fallujah and Baghdad. The deadliest rifles? The AK-47, used by insurgents. And, for coalition forces, the M4 carbine and M16. Machine guns like the PKM, the M240B, and heavy machine guns like DSHK and the M2 Browning were the deadliest. Artillery. From mortars to rockets and heavy shells, these weapons became the second deadliest weapons on the battlefield. In cities like Fallujah and Baghdad, insurgents unleashed relentless barrages of mortars and Katyusha rockets, turning city streets into deadly kill zones. But it wasn't a one-sided barrage. U.S. forces hit back hard with heavy firepower, 155mm howitzers and airdrop munitions, devastating insurgent strongholds. In the Iraq War, the deadliest weapon wasn't tanks, not airstrikes, not even snipers. It was IEDs, improvised explosive devices, DIY bombs made from just about anything. Cell phones, cooking timers, even old artillery shells. They were hidden in trash piles, roadside rubble, animal carcasses, seriously, even fake rocks. They were triggered by tripwire, others by remote, and some just waited. They caused over 60% of U.S. combat deaths. That's more than all other weapons combined. Korean War, landmines. It's hard to pinpoint exact numbers for landmine deaths, but they are considered the third deadliest weapon of the Korean War. The DMZ, a demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, is a reminder of the danger posed by these weapons. Reports estimates approximately 1 million mines hidden in the area. At the second place, we have rifles and machine guns. They caused approximately 33.2% of all combat deaths and 33% of killed in action cases, more lethal than shrapnel per hit, meaning every bullet counted. On the South Korean side, small arms such as the M1 Garand, the M1918 Browning automatic rifle, and the M2 Browning were the deadliest. On the North Korean side, the PPSH-41, the Mosin Nagant, and the RPD were the deadliest. Explosive projectile shells, such as artillery, mortars, and bazookas, were the deadliest weapons of the war, responsible for 49.6% of all combat deaths. Honorable mentions like the M2 mortar, which launched high explosive rounds right into enemy trenches, often without warning, and the improved bazooka that could take out almost any tank in one hit. Vietnam War. Death didn't always come from bullets or bombs. Sometimes it was waiting just beneath your feet. Mines and booby traps were the third deadliest weapons of the war. Comprised anti-personnel mines, punji sticks, and improvised explosive devices, they caused 11% of U.S. military deaths and a staggering 65% of casualties among South Vietnamese civilians. The Viet Cong turned the jungle into a deadly maze, using simple tools to build complex traps, tripwires, punji stick pits, and pressure-triggered explosives made from recycled explosives. Decades later, millions of unexploded mines still haunt the land, injuring civilians long after the war ended. The second deadliest weapon in the Vietnam War was small arms. According to some reports, small arms caused over 51% of all U.S. military battlefield deaths. That's more than airstrikes, artillery, and bombs. Weapons such as M16 rifles and M60 machine guns, Viet Cong AK-47s, and RPD light machine gun were the deadliest small arms. But as in most wars, artillery was the king of casualties in Vietnam, making it the deadliest weapons of the war. This included howitzers, field guns, heavy mortars, and rocket launchers. The U.S. and its allies alone unleashed over 1 million tons of artillery shells during the war. The deadliest ones were the M101A1 howitzer, the M114 howitzer, the M107 self-propelled gun, the Katyusha rocket launcher, and the 82mm and 120mm mortars. And again, huge thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile now by using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New players or returning players will receive a massive bonus pack, so make sure not to miss it.